My name is Avi with PC Doctor, and we have made it our mission to help educate people on improving their cybersecurity defenses. Before we get started, I would like to take care of a couple of housekeeping items. Presentation today is for educational purposes only and should not replace independent professional advice or your own personal judgment. Nothing presented should be considered legal or financial advice. Also, you may be watching this webinar on demand from a previously recorded live broadcast. Cybersecurity is constantly changing and evolving. The information in this video may not be applicable at the time you are watching this. Lastly, if you have any questions, please type them in the chat and I will do my best to answer at the end of the webinar. 60% of small businesses that suffer a ransomware attack will go out of business within 6 months, mostly because they are just not prepared to respond to such an event. Is your company prepared? Today, we are going to discuss some easy to implement protections that the average user can take to protect themselves and their company. I am not here to tell you that putting these protections in place will guarantee that you don't get hacked, but we will try to make sure that you are not one of the low-hanging fruit for the hackers to attack. So how are the hackers getting access to your network and data? The number one way is phishing emails. You have your standard phishing emails that get sent out to millions of people at a time in the hope that they get a few people to fall for it and click. Some of them are phishing for email credentials or trying to get you to download and open a malicious attachment. Then you have what's called spear phishing, where the email is more targeted. It might be an email impersonating an employee and sent to the accounting person asking to change the bank account for payroll, or it might be an email to an employee made to look like it comes from the CEO. These are more dangerous, and the end user is more prone to fall for this scam. The next way that hackers get in is stolen credentials. They may get these stolen credentials from a phishing email, where the user is redirected to a fake email login page, or they are sold on the dark web from companies that have been hacked in the past, like Target. Lastly, you have misconfigured devices. This is a bit more technical, and I will leave discussing this in more detail for a future webinar. But the first thing is, any device that is connected to your network, such as a security camera or a doorbell cam, make sure to change the default password. Sometimes these devices are open to the internet, and the first thing an attacker will try is to see if they can get in with the default username and password. On the previous slide, we mentioned credentials being sold on the dark web. Where are those coming from? I am sure most, if not all of you, have heard of some of the larger breaches in recent years. Companies like Equifax, Target, and Uber, just to name a few. I encourage you to visit a website called Have I Been Pwned? The website was created by Troy Hunt, an Australian web security consultant known for public education on security. You can enter your email address and click the Pwned button, and it will show you if your data has been compromised in previous hacks. It will also show what information was stolen. I used my personal email as an example, and you see just a few of the companies in which my info was included in the data that was hacked. We set up logins to all these companies online, and we trust them to keep our data safe, but many of them do a terrible job of protecting us. You can see I highlighted in the Adobe hack that the hackers were able to get my password hints as well as a weakly encrypted copy of my password. For many users, the hackers were able to easily decrypt the password. These then get sold on the dark web. Some other nice features of the website is the Notify Me option, where you can put in your email address and get notified if your account is part of any future breaches. There is also the domain search. The domain search is for your business domain, and you can see if any email address in your domain has been part of a data breach. So you won't be able to use it for your personal Gmail account. One thing to note is you will need to prove ownership of the domain, so you can't just search for any random domain. And they provide a few different ways for you to prove that you own the domain. Let's start with phishing emails. What can you do to protect yourself and your organization? Training users on how to identify phishing emails is important. There are a few types of phishing emails you will see, but there is a common theme. Usually, there is some sense of urgency. Your password is expired, or you missed a call and you have a voicemail which is attached. You missed a package delivery, or there is an invoice attached that is past due. Another theme is bad grammar and misspelled words. Lastly, is that it might not be addressed to a name. It might just start with Dear Sir, or even more common, won't be addressed to anyone at all. A good rule of thumb is that if an email has an attachment or a link that needs to be clicked, then you should treat that email as suspicious. Let's go over a few different examples. Here is an example where you can see the urgent call to action. My account is running out of space. It even says that it's coming from OneDrive. But you need to look at the email address it's coming from and not just the name. You can see here they created a fake domain that includes the word OneDrive. Also look out for fake domains that look similar to the real address. For example, Google, instead of the letter O, it might have the number 0. Lastly, even if the name and email all match up, that does not make the email safe. The hackers could have hacked that person's email and use it to send out what might be considered trusted emails to all that user's contacts. If you were not expecting this email, then reach out to the user by phone to confirm it's real. The hackers keep adapting and making changes. Many times, a user would get a suspicious email and reply back if the email is legit. We have seen hackers recently set up an auto reply to respond that yes, the email is real. One of the most important things that you can do when it comes to links is to hover your mouse over the link without clicking on it. After a second or two, a box will pop up showing where the link is really pointing to. This will usually help you decide if it's real or fake. But again, look out for misspelled domains or where they include a real name as part of a longer fake address. Here is an example of a recent fake email that I got. It has the FedEx logo. It says it comes from FedEx and that I missed a delivery that needs a signature. How many users at your organization are opening the attachment in this email without giving a second thought? Here is another recent one, and I want to use this one to highlight hovering over the link before clicking. So first, you can see the link in the email makes it look like it goes to charles-investments.com. If I put my mouse over the link, it says capitalone.com-onlinebanking.com. So right away, you can already see that it's pointing to a different place than what the link says. You can see how they use capitalone.com in the link, but the actual address is capitalone.com-onlinebanking.com. I am willing to bet that without any training, some of your employees are falling for this. They may not fall for the Nigerian prince who has $14 million to send them, but many users will click without thinking on a missed package email or an email that says that they missed a voicemail. We talked about how you can spot phishing and malicious emails, but what can you do about all those websites that already have your login info? The first thing is to turn on two-factor authentication anywhere you can, especially financial accounts and your email accounts. Your email account is like the keys to your kingdom. If a hacker gets access to your email, then all they need to do is go to any website you have a link and click Forgot Password and wait for that reset password link to come in. While two-factor authentication is not perfect and there are ways around it, it is still an important level of protection. One thing to note is there are different types of two-factor authentication, and some are better than others. Most people are familiar with receiving a text with a two-factor authentication code, but it's possible for the hackers to clone or take over your cell phone SIM to intercept that text message. Another common one is an app on your phone that pops up to approve or to deny when you are trying to log into a website. This type of two-factor authentication is prone to an attack called two-factor fatigue. The attacker will keep repeatedly trying to log in over and over until eventually the user gives up and hits approve. In fact, this is how the hackers were able to hack into Uber. A more secure two-factor method is called number matching. When you try and log into the website, a number will be shown on the screen, and you will need to open up your two-factor authentication app on your phone and type in the number that you see on the screen. The next thing I highly recommend is getting a password manager. If you are like most people, you have one, two, or maybe even three different passwords that you use everywhere. It might even be a really good password. But if one of those websites gets hacked and they stored your password insecurely, then the hackers have access to that password, which they can then test on different websites. A password manager will save your passwords for you, but more importantly, it is able to generate random, long, secure passwords. You can see in the screenshot that I am able to generate a 20-character random secure password that I will never remember. But the password manager will remember it for me and fill it in automatically whenever I go to that website. If that website gets hacked, then I only have one password to change. I do not have to worry about the hackers using that password at any other website. The only password you will need to remember is the password to log into your password manager program. It should ideally be a phrase and something you have never used anywhere else. And of course, you want to turn on two-factor authentication for your password manager. A good password manager will also analyze your existing passwords and tell you which ones might already be out there on the dark web or which ones might be weak and easy to crack. At the office, it is important to keep your network protected. When you have meetings with clients at your office, are you letting them connect to your main Wi-Fi? What about your employees if they bring in a personal laptop or they want to connect their cell phone to Wi-Fi? You should make sure to have a guest Wi-Fi that is separated from your main network. That way, visitors or any other devices that you don't know how secure they may be will be kept separate from your network and data. Only trusted devices should be allowed on your main network. When you are on the road and connected to public Wi-Fi, always use a VPN. This will send all your traffic encrypted through the VPN so that no one can snoop on your activity. The FBI recently warned against using public charging stations. If you plug your phone into a charging station that was set up by a malicious actor, it's possible that they can inject malware into your phone. Without getting too technical, anytime you browse the internet, your computer is sending messages to a domain name server, DNS for short, and the DNS server, in turn, tells your computer how to find the website you are trying to go to. By default, your office or home router will use the DNS server provided by your internet service provider. Cloudflare is a company that provides a free DNS service that will block malware websites and, if you want, adult websites as well. You can adjust the settings on your computer individually or protect your whole network by updating the settings on your router or firewall. On the screen are the DNS settings that you can use in place of the default settings. There is directions on the Cloudflare website on how to find the settings on your router or your computer to update them. There are a couple of more simple protections we can put in place. First one is turning on BitLocker drive encryption. On your Windows computer, click on Start and type in the word BitLocker, and it will bring up a screen where you'll see the option to turn BitLocker on or see if it's already turned on. Most modern computers have the ability to turn on BitLocker as is. The main thing that BitLocker does is to protect your data if your computer is lost or stolen. The hard drive is encrypted, and as long as they can't figure out your Windows password to log in, they will not be able to get access to your data. On an unencrypted hard drive, they can just remove the hard drive from your computer and connect it to another computer to access all your data. The important thing is to make sure to back up your BitLocker recovery key. There are rare occasions that on boot up, the computer will need the recovery key in order to boot into Windows. The next thing on our list is backing up your data. If your company has a server, then they are hopefully backing up all the data saved to the server. One important thing to note, it is important to test those backups on a regular basis to make sure that it is working correctly and that the data can be recovered from the backup. While most companies back up their servers on a daily basis, are they also backing up individual computers? Many users save files to their documents and desktop folders, and those may not be getting backed up. Or maybe your personal computer, is that being backed up? Many companies use Microsoft 365 for email, and this includes space for each user in OneDrive. You can go into the settings for OneDrive on your computer and turn on backup so it'll back up your main folders. For personal users, you can also create a free Microsoft account that includes 5 gigabytes of storage space to back up your data to the cloud. You can also use a service such as iDrive that will back up any folder that you have important data. They even have an app for your phone that can automatically back up all your pictures and videos. If you have an iPhone, you can use the built-in iCloud backup to save all your pictures and videos. Does your company have an incident response plan so that your team knows how to handle and respond to a cybersecurity incident? Your incident response plan should clearly identify each person's role. This is not just IT. It should identify who is the team lead, who is handling communication to your customers and with the media. Reach out to your cybersecurity insurance provider. Your policy usually will include lawyers, PR, and an incident response team. All these phone numbers should be in your incident response plan. Once you have your incident response plan, make sure there is a printed copy and that everyone knows where to find it. Lastly, it is important to tabletop exercise your plan. What if your team lead is not answering their phone? What's the next step? Have a tabletop exercise quarterly or at least yearly. And then after the tabletop exercise, it is important to review what you learned from it and adjust your incident response plan accordingly. I hope you were able to learn something from today's webinar. I am passionate about cybersecurity and would love to answer any questions you have. If you have any questions at a later point, Feel free to reach out to me via email or phone, and I would love to help.